Okay, in this last section, we're going to look at estimation. And I think a lot of times students don't understand what this truly means. We're going to estimate. We're going to get an approximate answer to the problem. I'm not asking for the exact answer. And there's a lot of times in life when we estimate. Maybe if the exact value is not known, maybe you're predicting how many people are going to show up for a party or something like that. The value is not constant. We would just estimate like population growth. Irrational numbers we'll talk about later in the course. Sometimes an exact answer is just not needed. Like if you're just trying to figure out which item to buy, you don't need to know down to the penny necessarily which item to buy. You can just estimate. Or if we want to check the reasonableness of calculated results from either doing mental math or using your calculator, find out if the answer you're going to write down even sounds reasonable. Is it even in the ballpark? That's what we're trying to find out. Sometimes if you're buying things, like you have 3 items in your cart at Walmart and you're just estimating, oh, it's going to cost about $22 when I get up to the register. See, there's a lot of times we just estimate. What I don't want you to do is get the exact answer and then like round it off, because that completely defeats the purpose of estimating. To estimate, we don't need to know the exact answer ever. We're just estimating it. So actually you have a lot of wiggle room with these answers. So let me show you some strategies that we use for how we can estimate the answer to some addition problems. And a really good way to start is just to use rounding, just basic rounding. So if I want to add these 2 numbers together, I notice that those numbers are in the thousands. So maybe I can round them off to the nearest thousand. So with 4724, you basically think to yourself, is that closer to 4,000 or is it closer to 5,000? Well, it's closer to 5,000, so I'm going to call it 5,000. 3192, is that closer to 3,000 or 4,000? Well, that's closer to 3,000. So I'm going to say this is approximately 5,000 plus 3,000, which is 8,000. So I can say the answer to this question is approximately 8,000. So if you did it on a calculator to get the exact answer, you should be getting some kind of an answer that's close to 8,000. Okay. But again, I'm not asking for the exact answer. I'm just asking for an estimate. So rounding, that's one way that we estimate. Or maybe you wanted to round to the nearest hundreds. I mean, just, if it's a problem in the homework or something, just whatever the instructions say to do. But if you're just out on your own estimating, I think the thousands is good on this one. So about 8,000 is what the answer would be for that one. And then we have this process called front end with adjustment. So we're going to start with the front end, actually, and then we're going to adjust. Remember, the idea is just to get an estimate, a quick estimate. So what does this mean? This means 500 plus 300 plus 200. That's what this left side means, the front end. Well, if you add that together, 500, 300, and 200, you get 1,000. So that's about 1,000. Plus, now we're going to look at what's left. We have a 66, a 41, and a 26. And I could look at these and go, well, you know what? 60 and 40, that's pretty close to 100. So I'll call that 100. And then that 26, I don't know, I'll call it 30. I'm just trying to use nice numbers, right? I don't want to have to think too hard when I add these together. If you can't do this result in your head, you didn't round good enough. Like, round more to make the math easier. So 1,000 plus 100 plus 30, that's approximately 1130. That's about what that sum would be. No one asked me for the exact answer, so I'm just going to round and estimate. So I got 1,000, I rounded 100, and I rounded 30. That's front end with adjustment, starting at the front end. Grouping to nice numbers is kind of like finding compatible numbers. So if you have a string of numbers that you have to add together, try to look for like hundreds or 50s or something like that where it's nice numbers. So if we add 23, 32, and 49, that's about 20, 30, and 50. That's about 100. So I'm going to say that those 3 are 100. If I look at 39, that's about 40, and 64, that's about 60. 40 and 60, that makes 100. So we'll call that another 100, and I'll say I think the answer is approximately 200. So this sum is approximately 200. That's what we could say. Again, I don't know the exact answer. I just tried to group and find, and you see I was rounding as I was doing that. I was like, 20, 30, 50. See, I'm rounding. That's kind of the main thing that you do when you're estimating. Then we have a process called clustering. That works really well when all the numbers are approximately the same size. So we're adding 254, 267, 310, 362. Do you see that all of those numbers hover around 300? They're all pretty close. They're all approximately 300. And how many are there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's 5 of them. Do 5 times 300 and get 1,500. And say, well, I think that this is approximately 1,500. Again, this method only works if all the numbers are roughly the same. And these were all pretty close to 300. Some were over, some were under. It kind of averaged out at the end. So about 1,500. And then a strategy I really like is using the range. So what the range is going to do is it's going to give you a range for your answer. Like we're going to say, well, I think the answer is somewhere within this range of numbers. So you can either do a low estimate or you can do a high estimate, and these both involve rounding. So we're going to add 378 to 524. So if you want to get a low estimate, what you want to do is you want to round down. So take 378, round it down to 300. I know it's closer to 400. We're rounding down. This is a low estimate. So round it down to 300, round this one down to 500, and your low estimate would be 800. See how easy that is to add? Well, what if you round up? If you round up, that's going to give you a high estimate. So round 378 to 400, take it up. 524, take that up to 600. And 400 plus 600 is 1,000. So you say the answer is approximately between 800 and 1,000. So you're giving an answer that's a range. So I think it's somewhere between 800 and 1,000. Maybe it's close to 900, but again, you're giving a range. Let's try it again. We'll do a low estimate and we'll do a high estimate for this next one. So if I want to do a low estimate, I'm going to round both numbers down. So 165, I'm going to call it 100. 346, I'm going to call it 300. If I add those, I get 400. So that's my low estimate. If I want to do a high estimate, I'll round both numbers up. So 165 will become 200. 346 will become 400. And I add those, and I get 600. So I'm going to say the answer is between 400 and 600. Somewhere like in between those numbers, like it was in between those numbers. And it's approximately between 400 and 600. So that's how you can get a range as your estimate.